Hi, this is Russ Kellett. This is Russ Kellett's mixed bag of... I have no idea what happened then, but... right, okay. This is Russ Kellett. This is Russ Kellett's mixed bag of all things paranormal, and I'm struggling tonight as usual. My guest I just had on chatting a minute ago and lost him, so I'm just having to reconnect. So if you wonder what's going on, as usual. Hi, Sasha. Hi, Sasha. Are you there?
Yes, I'm there. I'm here.
Right.
You're there.
I am definitely there. I'm not all there, but I'm there. We're live now. I'm hoping everything is okay. So, welcome to the show, Sasha Lessin, and he's from all the way over there in Hawaii. And as you say, is it aloha?
Aloha. Yes.
Right. Yes. So, to be quite honest, I started out on radio shows some time ago, and basically came back into sort of like being on radio again a few years ago because of Sasha and his wife Janet Lessin, and I think there was TJ as well, and I think there was Lorian, and so they got me back into, well, basically if it wasn't for them I wouldn't be on this show tonight, to be quite honest, so big thank you there. And I don't. People are saying, "What did they do? letting a maniac loose?" But never mind. The maniac's loose. So anyway,
not at all, Russ, because you've gone way beyond just being a experiencer. You've been studying just like Janet and I have, and you know more and more and more and more. And so you keep talking on the radio as you keep learning. I love what you're doing.
Well, thank you. And I mean, to be quite honest, I like your show and Janet's, and I mean, all right. For some reason now, we've got all sorts of things coming up from the radio station. So I hope I didn't cut in. I'm just hoping I didn't cut in to the show's ads and what have you. But anyway, sorry about that. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did all this start for you? You know, basically, where was you born? Where were you from? A little bit about yourself. That's okay, if you don't mind.
I'm happy to. I grew up in California, and I one of the interesting things is I always remembered this Bible story about how Noah got all these animals of two of each kind on his boat, and I thought, boy, they must have lived close to his place in Sharupak or Iraq. How did he get the tigers not to eat the bunnies and blah blah all this stuff? Well, lo and behold, I went to study with a guy named Zecharia Sitchin when I was an anthropologist, and he started answering these things. I had been so fed up with anthropology. I had a PhD in anthropology. It did not make any sense because I saw fossils and evidence from South America that showed that there were people there way before the Indians were supposed to have come across the Bering Strait when it was cold enough to walk, and all kinds of things like that. The evidence was overwhelming, so I was fed up with anthropology, and especially with 140 years of no missing link between Homo erectus and Homo sapiens, and there wasn't any missing link. Once I found out studying with Zecharia Sitchin and Lloyd Pye, there wasn't any missing link because we were placed by interventionism, not by slow Darwinian evolution, which is merely a fallacy. Although microevolution is true, you get bigger and smaller and bigger horns and stuff like that. But the big species in genera were a result of interventionism. And as our information grew and grew and grew, we realized that we were involved in this huge thing with a whole bunch of different species that were putting humans and non-humans on Earth and so forth. And so with Sitchin, we get our origin. We find out we are the Anunnaki. We are these great big guys that came from a different planet, and one of their kids that they had with the slave race that they made, that's us, and I'll go into that. One of the kids they made, their chief scientist, Enki, or as he's known as in the Bible as Lucifer, had a kid with his foreman's wife, and this kid was named Ziasutra, or Noah. And when the boss, it's Enlil or Yahweh, he said, let the slave species all drown because there's hundreds of thousands of them and there's only 900 of us. And besides that, it's illegal and the Federation's pissed at us for making these slaves in the first place. Just let them all drown. But Enki was not about to do that. And one of the representatives of the Federation gave him plans for a submersible. Enki's son helped Noah and the carpenters in Cherupek, that's in Iraq, build this great big submersible. Enki sent his son to help guide this to Mount Ararat. They figured out the wave pattern. The Anunnaki knew that the ice sheets were going to slide off of Antarctica, just like the way the glacier is now, and make big waves, and it was going to just bounce all over the globe and make things terrible. And the boss and the Yahweh said, don't any of you tell the humans or they won't be all wiped out. I want to make sure they're all dead. As far as those who have been married, the astronauts who ran off with a bunch of beautiful slave women, they could go to the tops of the mountains, but the rest of us were all going to evacuate. But then the Federation rep came and said, no, you can't, you'll die if you come back to Nibiru. You guys at Royals have to stay there. Just orbit around the planet for 140 days or so, and then you can land and see what's what. And so the Enlil, Yahweh, said, okay, if any of you tell the humans, they'll mob the spaceport, and besides that, I want them to all drown. I'll kill anyone that does that. Don't you tell the humans. What Enki did, he told Noah's wall, that is, he put a computer program in Noah's wall computer, and Noah and Enki's son and the carpenters built this thing, and they made a genetic lab underground. They put genetic starts in this. They gave Noah on his boat, not two of every species, but they gave him starts for the kind of domestic animals they would need as they settled from the mountaintops and worked their way back down into the land as it dried out. And so that's what happened. And when Enlil saw on the top of Mount Ararat, there's Enki and his son Ninagal and Noah and Noah's family and all the carpenters. I'm going to kill you. He comes down in his helicopter. They had these whirlbirds like helicopters. But the boss's son, Ninurta, came, and his sister, Nimma, Lilith, came, and they say, hey, no, we're going to need to repopulate. Remember, we can't go back to Nibiru, and we need slaves. We don't want to do all this ourselves. So that brought me studying Sitchin. That and lots of other mysteries. It started to bring home anthropology could have something to contribute, and I learned about a more plausible story about Noah's Ark. And Sitchin was fun. We learned lots and lots of things. The first week on Earth that the Anunnaki spent, that's how the week got done. The days were so fast, and on the seventh day they rested, etc. And so when you look at the Bible as a compilation, some few thousand years ago, events that happened hundreds of thousands of years and tens of thousands of years ago, you start to see, they're echoing some ancient things, and they may have it all. Everybody, that's the other thing. In all the histories we've got from everybody, they all lie. They all tell it's like Donald Trump and AOC were to tell the history of the United States. They have very different takes. Well, that's how it is. All these guys are saying, the other guys are lying and they're evil. We're right. They're all wrong. They're sinful. Of course, the other guys are saying, no, they're sinful. They're evil. We're the good guys. And it's even more confusing because, it's just like politics.
Oh, dear.
And the very same thing you guys are faced with, Brexit. Oh, my gosh. They have the same trip. Are they going to get out of their particular alliances and join others or go independent? As above, so below, and so within. We have internal wars with ourselves like all this, too.
Yeah, well, this is it. I mean, what you just told me was something that I asked in class myself years ago. And we used to have something called RE, religious education. They stopped it now, or they have it, but it's not our religion in this country. It's somebody else's religion, but everybody's got to listen to their religion. They had to listen to Christianity for years. Now they listen to Islam in a lot of schools, which is just as bad as the other. Anyway, but what I did was I asked a question, and that was, Miss, I says, can I can't understand this. Noah was told to do this. He had knowledge that this was going to happen. He was told it was going to happen. And he wants to drown all the humans. Does that mean like all the people? And basically, I was told to shut up, right? And I said, but miss, I don't know, I don't know what you mean. Noah was told that he had to get all the animals in because there was going to flood. He knew, what about all the people? Didn't they make any boats for the people? And I was told, report to the headmaster because you're going to get the cane. Now, what kind of civilization, right, allows, permits this to happen? Somebody has gone to a class where you're listening to what's being told and you ask a question because it doesn't weigh up to what you've been told, that God's loving, understanding, caring, right, and he wants to wipe all the humans off of the face of the earth. And because I asked this, I was told, go to the headmaster because you're going to get the cane. Well, my dad wasn't a big man or anything. He came from an hard background. And it's one thing, you do not send me for the cane because you'll get the cane from me dad when he finds out this bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. My dad was that way too.
It's like, why? And I told the headmaster, I said, my dad is not going to be happy when I tell him about this, that, I've asked a question to miss. And she said, I've got to come for the cane because I've asked a question. And he said, what question did you ask? I told him, well, why did God want to kill all the humans? Why did he save the animals? And he turned around and he says, well, we don't really understand 100% why this happened. He says, Russell, he said, I will see, I think Mrs., I forgot her name now. But anyway, so I never told me dad. I never told me dad because I hadn't had the cane and what have you. But you know something? It was one of these things where in class, there was a definite, an atmosphere when I went to religious education. And, for that lesson, you could cut, the atmosphere with a knife. No child should go through that.
Russ, It's terrible. This is exactly the Anunnaki, and this is what I've been studying this last few months, deliberately created religions that would be based on authority. That is, you do what the people up and believe and act like and get programmed to not to disbelieve other people's belief as like an antivirus, and you are now infected by this virus. And the whole thing there's in human history, the Buddha said, "Oh, this is all nonsense. Stop this rituals and all this stuff." And Jesus said the same thing. But the organized religions of the Anunnaki, the Egyptian religion, the religion of Persia, Zoroastrianism, the religion of Mycenae, the Mycenaean Greeks, the Dorian Greeks too, for that matter, the religion of the Romans, the religion of India, the Hinduism, all these religions are authoritarian structures that the Anunnaki deliberately made to pit us against each other in ideology and in war, so that we wouldn't realize that they and the survivors that they planted, especially that Prince Marduk or Satan planted and Yahweh planted, were continually warring with, and there was also an independence group of societies under Nimma or Lilith, the goddess societies that didn't have any war, that didn't have any walled cities or caches of arms or slaves. All the Anunnaki systems are slave systems, and all their religious systems are slave systems. They you become a slave to some promise of their heaven and earth. And all it ever meant was Inanna was saying that some people were transported back to Nibiru for being revived, and Marduk heard this. He couldn't take people back to Nibiru. It was forbidden, and so he promised them life in the heavens and all that. But he couldn't deliver. The pharaohs didn't go nowhere. They died.
You know, you just said something earlier on, Sasha, there. You said that there was one lot that didn't have any wars. Or was that? You know, a female?
Yes.
Or was that?
Her name was Nimma or Lilith in the Bible. She is the sister that both Yahweh, and Enki, who is, he's called various things, but basically he's Adonai. They both wanted her, and they both wanted to have kids with her, and she was on the genetics team with Thoth and Enki when they made the Homo erectus Anunnaki Homo sapien slave race, which is us, which was our progenitors. So that's the person. Her name is Ninmah. And she is the great mother, and there's images of her all over. In Egypt, she's known as Hathor, but in Greece, it reached its highest peak in what's known as the Minoan civilization. There, women and men were partners. Ariadne, the high priestess, was in every ceremony, and as the Dorians the Minoans, the Mycenaeans, these are the people that were Marduk's people, started coming down the Greek peninsula. The Minos, the king of this area, had them send their princes and princesses to him as hostages, but they formed athletic teams with a bull, which they grew up, and they would do this pole vaulting, and it was really great. But what happened is that the Anunnaki knew that there was going to be a great disturbance, and that Thera was going to, or Stromboli was going to go off, and that there was going to be great big waves going down to the Red Sea and up and down the Nile. That's just Noah's flood. But at the same time, it caused a great big wave to come toward Crete, where the Minoan civilization was centered. Just when the whole fleet was there, and it sunk the fleet. Theseus, one of these hostages from the Greek mainland, from Thebes, and Ariadne staged a revolt. Theseus dropped Ariadne off on the Isle of Lesbos, and that was the end of goddess culture for most of the world.
Right, I see. I think I've read a little bit years ago about this, but right, I see. Yeah, that I mean, this is just amazing, you know. But it comes down to, so you actually, was your university with Zachariah Sitchin?
No, it wasn't the university. He wouldn't have anything to do with universities. Matter of fact, I was part of a group that was sponsoring a whole bunch called the Prophets Conferences that was sponsoring a bunch of people. And at first we had Zachariah up there with other people, and people were saying, "Hey, make these other people shut up. We just want to hear Zachariah." So we created a program that he wanted to have a teaching program, and so we had a special a certification thing, coursework, 2 weeks in Santa Fe, then a week here and a week there. And we went around with him to all these different lectures and read everything. And they kept interviewing me because I was an anthropologist. You know, for example, one of the things that we know from the ancient literature, which Sitchin translated, he had the biggest collection of and translated more than anybody else and really did it well, was that Cain, after he killed his brother, they were going to execute him, and Enki stepped up and he said, "No, you can't execute him. I got to confess. Cain is really my son. I had him with Eve." And so they said, "Okay, well, we'll make him genetically marked. We'll make sure that he doesn't have any facial hair, and we'll make him and his kids go east of Eden." Okay, then when Thoth or Ningishita was going to help with the new spaceport that they were making up by Lake Titicaca, he took Cain, who was half Anunnaki, and Cain winds up being in the Lake Tiwanaku at their port. They had a big port at Titicaca with the takeoff down the Nazca, great big long takeoff runway for gold shipments. They were taking gold back to the planet Nibiru. What I really should say about Nimma, though, because this is really important, this is such a tangled story. There was this king who wasn't doing anything on Nibiru, and Nibiru is getting a terrible situation with its atmosphere going, just dissipating into space. And so their scientists said, well, you can sprinkle white powder monoatomic gold around the planet, float it up, and it'll protect you. And so that's why the Anunnaki sent a gold mining expedition to Earth in the first place. But the king said, I don't know whether I should do that. And the king's wife said, oh, don't do anything. For heaven's sakes, just pray to the Creator. The Anunnaki didn't think they were gods. They prayed to the Creator. And so this guy, Lama, the king, didn't do anything. And one of the princes, a guy named Alalu, pushed him off a tower and led a revolt and said, I'm king now. But the guy who was supposed to be king by their succession rule said, no, you ain't, I am. And so the one that had killed the other one said, look, let's make a deal. Marry your daughter, her name's Damkina, to my son, Enki, and their kid, who turns out to be Prince Marduk, will rule Nibiru after I, Alalu, am no longer king. Alalu says, so Anu, the pretender, said, okay, deal. But he made his son Enki break his engagement to his beloved, to Nimma, to Lilith, as the Bible calls her, and it broke their hearts. But you know, they're royals. They did it. Enki marries Damkina. They have this kid Marduk, who then thinks he's and is raised to be king of Nibiru. Nimma is so upset she goes to Enlil, her other half brother. These guys are both half brothers, and she has a baby with him, Ninurta, the great warrior he turns out to be later. And so by the time all these royals get to Earth, they both want Nimma, Enlil, Yahweh, and Enki, Lucifer, as he's called in the Bible, both want her, and they both have, it goes on and on. What a story. Romeo and Juliet repeats.
It sounds it. I mean, it's just, it really is amazing. So, that is just, yeah. That is.
Hey, you know what, Russ? Since I'm talking all this stuff about Nimma, Janet has studied Nimma and immersed herself in the Nimma so well, and she tells the story about our creation better than anyone. Janet, could you tell us what was Nimah's role in creating our species? Janet? Hey, baby, are you there? Yeah, maybe she ain't.
Sasha, I've just realised something.
Yeah.
Right. No,
What's
what
that?
I did was, I thought Sasha were at the side of you. So, right.
She's in a different room.
Right, well, what I'll have to do, I'll have to call her in. I'll have to call her in.
Thank you, yes.
I'll just do it. Is that okay? Right, yeah.
Sure.
Sorry about that. Here we go. Right, I'm just going to bring her in now. Here we go. Just bear with us a minute because I'm not...
I'll just wrap up.
And add, here we go. I'm not brilliant with technology. I hope this works.
Let me just say in the end, while you fiddle with that stuff, let me warm up by saying that Enki actually, I hear her tromping around. Here comes Janet. They want you.
On the radio show.
Oh, come now. Come now. So, Russ, she's here.
I'm walking.
All right, hang on.
Russ.
Right,
now she's here. So what I want you to know is there was the miners from Nibiru. They volunteered and they spent, and they went to Southeast Africa is where they were digging the gold, and they spent decades under the ground. They were on the verge of mutiny, and Enki was really fed up because Yahweh kept demanding more and more of them. He left. He thought he had a solution. He had noticed that Homo erectus, this smart hominid, had been letting other animals out of its trap, communicated telepathically, and was very empathetic. And he said, "This is a hominoid. This is what we need to adapt our genome to Earth. Gosh, if we could just be not so competitive and murderous, and we could be empathetic like these creatures and telepathic, wow, that'd be really cool." And so he engineered a mine mutiny. He told the miners to hold back their gold shipment, and Enki came, Enlil, the commander, the boss, came down with his son. The miners surrounded the house he was in. They set fire to their tools. They threatened him, and Enki walked in and said, "I know the solution. You don't have to have war." And what are you going to do? I can make some slaves for helpers for us. No, that's illegal. You can't make slaves. Make machines is what the son said. And Enki said, no, this will work fine. I'll just make a clone master and it'll really be cool. It'll be a win for everybody. Let's call Dad. And so they message Anu back on Nibiru, and Anu says, "You got to save the planet, and besides that, you got to send the miners home. They have lives too. Go ahead with your project. Clones are okayed." And I'll let Janet take the story from there, because we especially want to know what Nimah's role is.
Right. Let me get in closer here. Yes. So Nimah, poor Nimah, got kind of overlooked. She was originally betrothed to Enki, and Enki was first in line for the throne. And things went awry when Enki ended up having to marry Damkina in a political alliance so that their father Anu could remain in the kingship. That's exactly what. Yeah, he was going to lose a power position, so they negotiated for the next generation.
It'll be Marduk.
Right. So she was betrothed to Enki, and next thing she knows, she's out. Enki's marrying Damkina, and he has a son, Marduk. So she, brokenhearted, went into the arms of her half-brother. Enki and Enlil were both half-brothers, or half siblings. They were all siblings, but they had, I think two of them had the same mother, and it might have been Enlil and Nimah had the same mother, but the other one had a different mother. So anyway, they were all related. They were all siblings. And she ran into the arm of her other brother, Enlil, and got pregnant and had Ninurta. So this created the original fight between the two brothers, which became God and Satan in the Bible, God and the devil, right? And so, but she was in the middle of them, and she, for a while there, kept going back and forth with her heart broken and running into the arms of her beloved. And she ended up, long story short, over time with Enki, and she had 3 daughters at first, and then she ended up having about 8 more children, and we really don't know how many, but this what was
Tell about how Adam came about, honey. What was her role in making the clones?
Well, at a certain point, the miners were revolting down in South Africa. They didn't want to work in the mines anymore. It was dirty work, and they thought they were about that. And of course, so they decided to create these worker species, and they were the hybrids of, this is what's going on to this day. There's a hybrid species, and they're being used as a slave species. And I think you're part of that program, Russ, where you're, some kind of hybridization of your genes so you can go out and fight in space. So some things haven't changed. But back then, in those days,
all in test tubes?
They were trying to make the prototype, the original one, and so they were doing genetic experiments, and they weren't working. Sometimes they would make one and they couldn't hold its urine, and couldn't speak, and that's a lot of their genetic experiments were on different species too. That's why we have minotaurs and centaurs and all these different species. So they ended up using the Homo erectus, which was probably the Neanderthal, right? And they used that DNA as the basis for their hybrid, and because they saw that this humanoid that was on the earth was compassionate, was letting out the other animals. They had all these animals they were capturing and studying and hybridizing and creating other species. And so these humanoids were letting them out. And so they wanted to have more compassion in their DNA. They thought it'd be a good basis. And so they were going to do some experimentation with the native species here. And so it wasn't working. And finally, Nemo, they were using, the females of the local species and putting eggs and sperm and everything into that female. It just wasn't wasn't working. And so finally, Nemo came up with a solution where it has to be mixed in a clay vessel, not the type of vessels they were putting the admixture into. And she said, and it must be carried in the womb of a Anunnaki female. And so, Enki, who was in love with his sister Nema and had settled for Damkina, it was a political marriage. I mean, he loved her, but he wasn't in love with her. And he said, well, put the baby into Damkina. And Nema got outraged, and she's, no, it's my experiment, and I will carry it. And so she was not only the geneticist that figured out how Homo sapiens could come to be, she was the one that carried it in her womb, and so she gave birth to it. She said she held it out. She had said, with mine own hands, I have created it. And there's a cuneiform that depicts this, and it's on our website.
What did it look like?
And it was red, like the clay of the earth of Africa.
Reddish brown
with kinky hair, dark kinky hair.
Was it just like the Anunnaki boys, or was there a difference?
And it had a foreskin. The Anunnaki did not have a foreskin on their penises. Can we say that? Yes, we can. And so, anyway, that's kind of the story proceeds from there. But, she got overlooked eventually in the story and cut out of the story. And is there something going on? They're saying on Revolution Radio. Are we still on the air? Because I'm getting some pop-ups.
Yeah, everything's okay. It happens. I was just saying earlier to Sasha that I don't get an intro. When I used to get an intro before, and it'd say, now you're host, and what I get it occasionally. I think when Ahmed's about, I get it. But if not, what I've got to do is I've got to go to my other computer and listen to see when, the intro's coming, and then turn it off so there's no feedback.
I see.
You know what I mean?
So I think it's really worthwhile while we're discussing Nimma, about whom you asked, that to know that when the brothers were just about to blow each other up, she was the one who was able to stop that from happening on the earth. That the descendants of Lucifer, who wasn't Satan. Satan was his son, Marduk. Lucifer and Satan, that is Enki and Marduk, and all the other people in Enki's clan had gathered in the Great Pyramid at Giza to defend themselves. Horon was there, Horus was there, even Nergal, the lord of the underworld, was there. They were all there, and the Inanna was on the outside with all the with Yahweh and all those guys, and they're bombing the heck out of the thing. And finally, Nimma talks the commander, the boss, and Lil, Yahweh, into letting her mediate. And she goes in and she says, "Come on out, you guys we're all siblings. Let's not keep fighting. Will you guarantee us a safe passage?" And she talks Enlil into it. So they have a safe passage, and they divide up their areas. Enki gets Africa, and he gives Egypt immediately to Marduk, and Marduk's friends settle in Canaan. That's another story. But in any case, and the Mesopotamia and Turkey and the Eastern Mediterranean go to Enlil and his clan, and they put Nimma right in the middle, and she has this great big palace out on Mount Moriah, and ultimately they build a spaceport on the Sinai after the Great Flood, because their spaceport in Mesopotamia was under mud. But in any case, the story of Nimma and Enki goes on, right to the place where some modern theorists actually have some evidence that Enki and Nimma were married in Canaan.
Yeah, the biblical wedding at Canaan was actually the marriage of Enki and Nimma, so there's a lot of information on that. But I guess what I want to state here is that this is a global culture. This is why we have pyramids all over the planet. This is why all the different things like the Machu Picchu and over there in England, all those stone circles, and everything's connected to these Anunnaki. They were not limited to, Egypt. They traveled the world. They were a global culture. That's why we have, in South America, we have the Olmecs, and they have the African features. And so we're now starting to piece this together because of the LIDAR, the sonar, and we can see in South America there were cities the size of New York City with millions of people. And they've got buried under dirt, and we've had repeated earth changes with floods. We've had little mini floods. We had the global flood at Noah's time. So we're deconstructing and analyzing this stuff, and it takes a lot of us to pull it all together. So Sasha and I are working with other researchers.
Yeah, one of the things we know is that the Anunnaki were in North America. Both factions, Marduk had gotten his brother killed, Dumuzi killed, and so he was exiled to North America. Yeah. At the same time, and started building up his base there. About the time of Jesus, before Jesus realized he was being used, his Anunnaki managers brought him to America, and he was preaching, going all around. We had a whole show, and so forth. Then somewhere in the middle, he realized that he was being used and started telling him, "Hey, get free of this nonsense."
Yeah. Well, can I just say, there's a couple of things. One, which I would say that he was talking about the race basically wanting this mined gold. Is it gold, atomic gold? Is it something monatomic gold?
Yes, what they do is they would get the gold in ore form, dig it out of the ground. They ran it down these stone pathways that were using a combination of sound and electricity. And anyway, they got them basically to ships. They ship them up the east side of North Africa through the Persian Gulf, and there they refined it in a place called Badi Batera. And then they brought it to the spaceport at another place in Iraq called Sipar. There they flew it in heavy thrusting, chemically fuel burning. They were using stuff they got right there on Earth to Mars. That's where they changed it to ingots that were then brought to, easy to manage and brought all the way to Nibiru. And in Nibiru, they refined it. It's not difficult to make monoatomic gold through a series of chemical reductions. And this stuff floats just like flour floats in a flour mill. Yeah. It's the same thing. So at several points they thought they had enough, then the hole came back. Matter of fact, we were first created 300,000 years ago. 200,000 years ago, the hole came back, and the commander started yelling for more and more gold out of the mines, and this time from the slaves. And he said, these slaves, they're not really good. They keep going off in the bush or mutinying and living their own lives instead, and they're not very smart because they don't keep working for us. Enki, says the boss, and Lil Yahweh, make smarter slaves. Enki says, oh, I know just how to do that. And so he got two of the prettiest he found, and he made babies with them, and boy, were these smart. The kids were called Adapa and Titi, and Adapa was so smart, total genius. He mastered their flight machines. He went to Nibiru. He utterly scared the heck out of the Anunnaki. Here was someone from this new race. In just 100,000 years, this race had developed to the point that if you added some more Anunnaki genes, you get genius, and it really frightened them. They realized that we've got to make sure they don't speak the same language down there, that the different regions compete with each other, that they compete with each other. They never realized that we're up here controlling things.
Well, the thing I was going to suggest is that it sounds very much like what is happening today on Earth with all the chemtrails.
Yeah, it's very similar.
All the chemtrails that are, there has got to be a reason. Common sense says there has got to be a reason why this is happening. Now, the thing is, there's like a comparison here with this race needing to put this monoatomic gold into the atmosphere of Nibiru, and we've got something very similar going on here, where we've got something being sprayed or let loose in our atmosphere, right? Now, has anybody thought of this, a link there between these two things?
Yes, there's been a whole series of different people that have analyzed what is it that's in their chemtrails, and why on earth would they do it? And it goes all the way from shielding us from seeing what's out there, preventing us from seeing things, that's the main thing. It may be some kind of electrical capacitance that has changed in our atmosphere, but it's the cause of Morgellons kinds of outbreaks. I've seen several people that attribute terrible outbreaks on their skin from these contrails. We don't have them in Maui. The Pacific is free of them, but when I go to Phoenix or places like that, you can't even see the sky for all these things. Yeah. What do you think it is, Russ?
Well, looking at history of the Anunnaki, where they've got a problem on their planet and they're needing to sort it out by spraying something into their atmosphere, obviously somebody's doing exactly the same thing. We can see it. We've got videos of it. You can actually see it in the sky if you watch, We don't get it over here as much, to be quite honest, on the East Coast. But common sense tells me that, obviously they're doing it for a purpose. Now, what you've got to remember is the purpose, what they're doing this for, is for their purpose, not our purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's never, it's like politics. I love politics, but I've realised one thing. No matter who you have in, whoever comes in power, they never do anything for the people. There should be nobody starving around the world.
That's right.
There should be no children, and again, they make money by making all these charities and what have you. From hard-working people, some people can't even afford, to live properly, but, they've got hearts of gold, some of these people, and they will give money away to charities. And the bloody charities, the people that are supposed to be getting money from the charities never get the money. Because if they did, there would be no need, because there would be no problem. But it's gone on and gone on and gone on, and there's never any money going out making the situation any better, because it's not going where it's supposed to. It's obvious. I don't know any yet. I'm big question, So they're doing this for their own good. They're not, whatever they're doing up there in the sky, I would suggest that it's not for our benefit.
I think that your analysis is 100% right on. Things are really changing. There's a brilliant person called Yang who's running for president of the United States, who points out that all we need is a needs meeting. Person would get $1,000 American a month, and if you have a family of 3 that are living together, that's $3,000 a month, and basically then what happens is it doesn't matter that Amazon is putting all the retail sales out of business because now everybody is taking money. They have money and they're going to the coffee shop, which is their neighbors, and basically everybody starts to prosper when there's a lot of money, instead of just these people who want to reduce our population and control us and keep us pitted against each other while they get richer and richer. And this person, whether Yang becomes the Democratic nominee before President Trump declares a martial law or something like that, or not, what is happening is every Democratic person who's running from the Democratic Party is saying, wow, that is really right on. We need a basic support so that everybody can have a life.
Yeah, it's fantastic, but the problem is it won't work. Because
it's got some problems.
It has got, then the problem is that you need people to work. Now, the problem is that if you give money out to people for nothing, right, there is a big problem, and that is you're not making money. It's like anything. There's a bartering system. A bartering system only works if two lots of people have got something what the other person wants, right, If you bring it into 5 people, then you've got a bartering system where 5 people... So the problem comes when somebody, for instance, is out of the equation, and the bartering system, we can do this, we can do that, but we don't really need him because, so somewhere along the line, there'll be somebody that doesn't come out of it, and it always happens. But having said that, what you've got to do...
Russ, one of the things you got to consider is that work means taking care of elders who can't, or babies that can't. Work means the things that you don't count as work, the things women do every day, and that's work too. And when you start considering that, and the people that are displaced by Amazon purchases will find work, including art, music. We can mechanize almost any repetitive anything and use artificial intelligence. Now, Janet's much more expert on this.
Well, I'm just studying it as well. I am but an egg. But the 12,000 years is poverty level, so you're not going to quit working. You'll just be able to subsidize it, and we've got to stop having the bottom where people are living on the street and starving to death. So we've got to look at.
You've got to. You see, the thing is, instead of having somebody coming up with something silly that won't possibly work, what you've got to have is something that will work, and say, let's have no poverty, but people. Sort of like it encourages people to make money and but it's like you don't get that.
They're not even get their needs met. 12,000 a year doesn't meet your needs. I mean, I'm on Social Security. It doesn't go far enough. You have to, to figure out how you have money to get your hair cut. You don't have money to put gas in your car. You don't have money to have a car. I mean, it's just not sufficient. So, of course, people are going to work, but they're going to be subsidized for having their jobs taken away from them by automation and artificial intelligence and, the roboticization of most of our jobs. So, within 5 years, this is what Andrew Yang says, within 5 years, and he's talking to Silicon Valley, and they're going to remove all the fast food industry jobs and the driving cars, driving trucks, they'll be all automated, Ubers. Let's see, what else was it? The call centers, everything can be automated. And there's like 4 or 5 industries that are going to be gone in the next 5 years. And there's no place to go. So, you can't even get a job. So we have to do something different as we go from one reality, which is this job-based reality, to another reality. And we got to figure it out. But to leave people just hanging with nothing to starve to death, that's going to lead our society and absolute anarchy. And so you got to take care of the people, or else stop making babies.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Yeah, but there doesn't seem to be any common sense where let's start off by sort of like making sure that people are not starving and they've got homes, But there doesn't seem to be any common sense, people. Yeah. I think people today are a lot more. What's the word for it? Me. They only think of me.
Selfish.
Yeah.
Very selfish.
Narcissistic.
It's not a nice word, but it's true. Let me just check on the time. Because.
Sure. Yeah. We have a break coming up here.
We've got 5 minutes. I think we've got 5 minutes coming up for a coffee break. No, it's now. Okay, this is Russ saying come back in 5 minutes or whatever, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Taking a break.
We'll see you in 5.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
In breaking news, a visiting Syrian diplomat reported today that their population is evolving rapidly and advancing into a 5th dimensional consciousness. They are seeking peace with all cosmic cultures, which may mean that the Earth will be asked to join the prestigious Galactic Federation of Light Alliances. Please join Debbie West and Michael Hathaway on Lost Knowledge, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio A, for the latest breaking news on the Star Visitors' peaceful contact and the ongoing project of cleansing the Earth.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it.
Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio.
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
When your doctor tells you have bad cholesterol or blockages in the arteries, what do? When diet and exercise is not enough, we try medications and hope for the best. For the last 2 decades, I have been telling people about a natural method to help solve these problems and more. Extendovite can help maintain cardiovascular health and lower blood lipid levels in adults. The 7 herbs and Extendivite are known to work together synergistically to get the results we hope for. There are many testimonials on Extendivite's effect on circulatory-related ailments. Get Extendivite today to start your journey back to a healthier life. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or see us on amazon.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hi, this is Russ Kellett. This is Russ Kellett's Mixed Bag, a mixed bag of all things paranormal, and for the free-thinking man and woman out there looking into all sorts of subjects, from UFOs, aliens, abductions. We've even got ghosts, crop circles, Bigfoot, Littlefoot, you name it, we've got it. If you haven't got it, it's not worth having. And on tonight's show, I have Sasha Lessin and Janet Lessin. And hi there, how are you doing?
Oh,
Hi.
okay. I'm just
back.
Whoa.
Can you hear me, honey? I'm back on. I just jumped on my own computer.
Yeah,
She jumped up. Oh my gosh, Ross broke his. Be careful when you're jumping on it, babe.
I'll send you.
Jumping on computers.
I'll send you a picture of my broken screen. Oh dear me! I've got it plugged into a secondary screen at the moment because it's my favourite computer.
Oh,
to be honest, it's a computer that I get on the show with every week. So I'm just going to get a new screen. I'm going to get one this week. I'm going to send off one. I mean, it's had its day in a way, but you know, when you've got a nice computer that you like, that you work with, you know, and I'm thinking, £15, you know, like $30, I'll mend it and what have you. So,
yeah.
Anyway, so so there's comparisons with what's going on today in our skies. With this whatever it is that's been sprayed into the atmosphere, and really, if we look at it realistically, the stories of the Anunnaki using monoatomic, gold to put into the atmosphere around Nibiru, you know, to me, there's like parallels here. You know, this is what we're talking about. The other thing is, when we were talking earlier, you know, we're talking about archaeology. I had a great friend. He was a brother as well. He was a monk, and an ex-Marine as well. A real lovely chap. And I lost contact with him. And then I found out that he'd passed away about 3 years ago. And that chap, he knew more about a lot of the digs in the ancient lands, you know, in the Middle East and North Africa and what have you. And he told some amazing stories about being, you know, ushered off of these digs when they'd found things, and the authorities had turned up. And they said, right, you know, we're closing this dig down now. And they'd say, well, why? And what it was, there was finding things that shouldn't have been there. Right, yeah? There was finding technology, there was finding, you know, sort of like something like Bronze Age and Iron Age tools and what have you, when there was so far down, where there was like, you know, around the dinosaurs time, where, you know, there's, you know, millions of years difference, you know, almost like finding you know, almost like finding a firearm, you know, sort of like maybe 2,000 years ago. You know, sort of like, you know what I mean, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago. Just out of sync. You know, just out of sync, something that shouldn't have been there at that time. And, you know, it had happened on a number of occasions. And then there was occasions that he told us that he'd been told about, you know. And the last one he was telling us about, a place called Jabal Law or something in the Middle East. He was wanting to go look at this place because there was something there that didn't fit in. And then they were talking about going to have a look at, you know, the place in Turkey where they thought they'd found Noah's Ark, etc. You know. So there is a lot of discrepancies. What he was saying is that there's what's been written down that is like law and like Darwin's law and what have you, and there is the truth. So he's saying like, and he said most of the archaeologists, he says, you know, when you're on a payroll and when you're getting a good, you know, a good wage, you keep your mouth shut. You know, it's a shame. He says it's like most of the books. He says, you know, if you look at it realistically, most of the books that you look at could and should be rewritten again because it's
absolutely
it's BS. A lot of it is BS.
That's right.
You know,
that's right.
Like you said, there is no missing link. There is no missing link. Well, the missing link were in a test tube. You know. They're not going to tell you that, are they, really? They're not actually going to tell you that. But anyway, that's the way I look at it, from talking to people that, you know, that were academics.
Absolutely.
Were an academic.
One of the You're right. You're totally right on. This guy knows what he was talking about, 100%.
But also, you know, people are not stupid. You know, you can be an academic, but there's a lot of people that are not academics, that never wanted to be an academic, but they still use their brains and they question things. Like me, when I questioned the teacher, well, you know, why are they killing people? Why is God, when a loving God doesn't sound so loving? Go to the headmaster, you know, go to Mr. Gray, you know, you get the cane, you know, for asking a child asking a question that because it doesn't fit in. It doesn't fit in with what we're taught as God and what have you, being loving and what have you, a loving God, you know, to kill all the people that he made. What there is going on there? You tell me, you know. Well, I think we know, don't we? You know. And of course, this is what the Templars knew. You know, this is why the Templars turned around and said, you know what, Mr. Pope, stick it. You know, we know the truth.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Grandmaster, if you're listening. I probably shouldn't have said that, but anyway. But yeah, you know, they knew the truth, and a lot of other people knew the truth. And the truth is, you know, the truth, as you know, is a lie. You know, and all that we're talking about is what people say. Oh no, no, that is the truth. All the knows and what have you, when we're talking about things that is, you know, this subject is the truth.
Yeah.
You know, most of the truth anyway. Yeah. Most of the time, you don't get the occasion, you know, where somebody wants to put a little bit in there and muddy the waters. But if you look at it realistically, from like what we've been talking about tonight, you know, it's common sense that this is how we got here. You know, we got here not through how people have purported to, you know, told us. Basically, this is how you've got here. You know, and you know, this is just by free thinking and looking at things and looking at logic says that we didn't come here, that, you know, there is no missing hate man, you know, sort of like, but there's a test tube somewhere and what have you. And then, of course, there was the vessel that it was carried in. That ain't around anymore, obviously. So, anyway.
Well, Russ, about the archaeology, you know, it's like, I'd like to tell a little story. It'll come back to an archaeological site known as Lagash, and a mummy that's in the basement of the London Museum right now. I mentioned before how the Anunnaki had exiled Prince Marduk, or Satan, to the it wasn't the United States, to North America. And after a while, the king of Nibiru, because Marduk is his grandson, he said, your exile is lifted, you can come back. So Marduk came back to his father's place near Basra, and a little parcel there called Babil. And he built a launch tower there. He was going to get a human army together, and he was going to retake Nibiru because he thought he should be king there. And when Ninurta and Enlil saw that he had built this tower and that he had made an alliance with the humans and he was going to marry one of the humans, Serpent, one of the slaves, he said, we've got to stop this because he's going to unite the humans. So they bombed the tower. That's the so-called Tower of Babel. It wasn't because he was reaching for the heavens. Yeah, he was reaching for the heavens. He was his control tower. He was going to launch rockets everywhere and interfere with all the rocket traffic back and forth. So Marduk then the tower, after that, they made sure that all the different people were posed with each other, different areas, different religions, and so forth. And they eventually gave the boss's granddaughter, Inanna, this kingdom in we call it Pakistan now, but it was the Indus Valley. And and she became a big shot both in Iraq and in the Indus Valley. Well, and so she wanted these two places, her kingdoms, to be able to trade. And so finally they trained a king's son in Uruk, the place in Sumer in Iraq, in both languages. And he goes all the way, makes it all the way to the Indus Valley. And with a message from his dad, who is half Anunnaki, half slave, and said, submit to me or we're going to have a war. Well, the king of Arada said, hey, I'd rather have trade than war, but if you got to have a war, let's just have our champions fight so we don't have to kill everybody. But anyway, this guy Banda came back, and Inanna, the granddaughter, saw him, and she got all confused. She thought that was her lover who Marduk had got killed, and she started an affair with this king Banda. And one of the descendants of Banda was Gilgamesh. He became king, so he could only connect with Inanna one day a year, and other than that, he started being really crazy during the time that she wasn't there and exercising his right of the Lord, the king, to have all the brides before their husbands to be could. And there was riots in Uruk. That people did not like this. And so Enki created a artificial human being, Enkidu, and to fight with Inanna. Had a tantric practitioner tame him and make him human. Then he came and fought with Gilgamesh, and Gilgamesh and Enkidu then became friends, and they tried to get Gilgamesh to go back to Nibiru and get everlasting life, like Marduk had been promising everybody, and like the Anunnaki seemed to have. And they went through a series of adventures, but eventually he failed, and Gilgamesh died. But his great granddaughter, Princess Puabi, who's dug up in Lagash in Iraq, and her body is underneath, deep down in the museum of the London Museum. And our teacher, Zechariah Sitchin, has asked that, the major thing with the, out of his request be that they do a genetic analysis of Princess Puabi, and that will show us what our missing genes are, the ones that are getting active now, where the Anunnaki part of us is getting ready to come out and bring in a better age.
Right. So basically, they'll know through DNA tests, basically.
Yeah.
Now, you know something? I was talking about this to one or two friends, and what it is there's two things here. Let's see. It was February, I think it had been, when I had an abduction. It was a different type of abduction. I'd taken, and I had implants taken out of my ears, my nose, and my eyes. And not been well since, and been to hospitals and what have you, and doctors, and having ear drops and what have you, and then having tests because the same area had these lumps and what have you, sort of like in my neck, and so I had that 2 weeks ago when I had to go for scans and stuff. And, sort of like, so I'm going through some very strange things, Sasha, with regards of abductions and things. And then yesterday morning, 4:00, had something very strange happened. I was taken again into one of the underground bases, and not taken and used how I usually am, as in taken and fighting and what have you. But I had all sorts of stuff done, like the injection in the back of my neck as usual, and sort of like then shown all sorts of things and told things, which has sort of like upset my equilibrium a little bit over the past day.
What kind of things were you told?
About sort of like what I'm doing and what I'm supposed to have done as a soldier and what have you. And it's like there's so much about what you've been talking about today, sort of like has come into it, more or less, Right. I know that we've. What I'm assuming is that there was like.
I'm a lifelong experiencer. And I know it changes over time. Yeah. So you've had one type of experience for a long time where you found yourself fighting in battle. So maybe you paid your dues, and it's time for you to get into it. They'll be giving you a different role. It's like you're retired or you graduated, and now you're doing radio shows, you're interviewing people. Seems like even in your life you're doing a different role. So maybe in your interlife with them, your ET life, you're going to be getting a different role.
Yeah, it's strange because what I'm thinking is that a lot of this is sort of like, I've never known about Nibiru. I've heard people talk about it, but when you've been more sort of like blinkered, looking forward, because I've had what happened to me as I don't even like using the word super soldier and secret space program, but right. being used as a soldier in what I would call this what we want to call it a universal war or galactic war. I know that some people wouldn't like the sound of it because it doesn't sound good, warring and what have you. But as far as I can make out now, is that there was originally 6 races, right? Yeah, that was basically in one part of our universe, right? Yeah, and
Right.
He had the power to make other races. Right, yeah? So that is probably doubled, so 12 races, and using these for whatever purpose they want. Right, yeah? Now, you know, they're not just fighting for one thing. I mean, it looks like to me, you know, obviously, you know, that there's on this earth with what we've been speaking about with the Anunnaki and what have you. Obviously, there was even warring on this planet, you know, for the rights, yes. You know, sort of like so, and it's never gone away. And what you've got to look at is, if this is true, right, yeah, all the powers around the world, right, yeah, no matter whether they're Chinese, Japanese, whether they're American, you know, sort of like European, British, you know, or South American, whatever, right, yeah, somewhere along the line, there is what you would call groups and people that have become kings and kingdoms around the world. But if you ask yourself, why were these people kings? What made them better than anybody else? Well, I think we know the answers now tonight, don't we? Listening to this show and listening to what you've been talking about. And that is because, you know, they've been basically interfered with, they've been made, and they're part of this system. So no matter who they are, if they've got some of this bloodline, this is why, and they're still warring around the world. And it's
Russ,
you know,
let me expand upon that a little bit, because the Anunnaki are relative latecomers to this earth. The reptilians were here way before we were. Let me just say that when the Draco Empire came upon the Lyrans in the Lyran group, they blew up one of the Lyran planets straight away, and most of the people, the Lyrans were humanoids like us, you know, a head, 2 arms, 2 legs. They fled all over the place to Andromeda, to the Pleiades, and then Nibiru's ancestors were one of the people that went to the Pleiades and formed part of a unity kingdom. But in any case, the Dracos pursued the Lyrans, and some of them landed on Marduk, which was a planet between Jupiter and Mars. And some of them had a great, highly developed civilization, Lyrans on Mars, which was very verdant at the time, very, very nice. And the Dracos hollowed out a comet-like thing, and they came next to Marduk, and the Maldekans sought refuge beneath in the fallout shelters in Mars, and they were okay, but the Marduk was blown into the Kuiper belt. That's what was all that was left of it. The comet proceeded past Mars, sucked off most of Mars's atmosphere, and ended up at what we call as it passed Earth. It sucked off enough of the Earth's, it was water covered and mist covered it, enough of the water so that 2 continents only arose: Lemuria in the present Pacific and Atlantis in the present Atlantic, and its edges, and it moved on. This comet moved on and became Venus. Those came to the surface. They made 7 domed cities. They sent a hollowed out satellite, the moon, which they occupied, and from there they, with their cattle, occupied Lemuria. Their cattle were the dinosaurs. They brought them. That's what they ate. 1 million years later, the humans had gotten a galactic federation together, and they occupied Atlantis, and they landed people. They retook Venus, and they landed some of the Atlans in the Gobi, and the people that from Maldek were in the Gobi too, and they all beat the hell out of the reptilians who went underground for the most part. And the war went on and on with the underground reptilians and the Atlanteans above ground. Of course, the Atlanteans extincted the dinosaurs. They just shot them with their modern weapons. And so what happened is they called the Council of Hatona, in the Andromeda group. Andromedans wanted to see peace, and they made a deal. Who's going to make the basic humanoid forms for this planet that can survive there? And 12 humanoid species and 1 reptilian species volunteered, and they each took a different part of the genetics. The reptilians took our brain stems, fight or flight, that part of us. And then each of the proto-humans, each of these different areas around the Earth were then more genetics were done on them. They were conditioned and so forth. And so you have this huge history. And the Atlanteans eventually sunk their own planet, their own continent too. Now we know that the early inhabitants of Ireland and Britain were long-headed. They were great big people. We know that they're all over the place. The round-headed people only came to Britain and Ireland later. When Atlantis sunk, it left the east coast of the United States and the west coast of northern Europe, and some island chains here and there. And just like in the Pacific, when Lemuria sunk, it left us the Pacific Islands and California coast and Formosa and the islands around the Japanese islands and so forth. But when the Anunnaki came, there were people all over the place, and a lot of them survived the floods. And the ant people, the Greys, who were actually evolved from the first planet that the Lyrians ruined and destroyed, they were the ones they're the Greys that rescued the ant people, that rescued the Hopi and the Zuni and took them to Sedona and helped them settle in the Four Corners area later. So anyway, there's a huge history. The Anunnaki are just telling their little part of it, and they're propagandists for themselves, as all historians are.
That's right. You're right there. Very strange, because in a lot of the UFO investigations that I've done over the years, strangely enough, I've come across something that you were talking about there, and that is stories of giants. Yeah, people that had actually seen. Not a lot of the times had they seen a craft, but they'd seen something like a 10 or a 15-foot giant around these areas. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, yeah, they had a craft that had been seen. And when I looked into the actual investigations and the area, a strange thing I came across. And that is that these areas were well known for giants living there. And they even had names for these giants in these areas. One of them, a very famous Yorkshire giant, which was called, now then, let me think, what the heck did they call him now? Now then.
Oh, Jack found a giant at the top of his beanstalk, too.
That's
a giant.
Oh, dear. My school of... My thoughts just gone wild now thinking about that. But anyway, yeah, it's one of these things where, what we're getting is that, like with myths and legends, right, yeah, you're finding that these areas sometimes where these things have lived and that used to roam. The giant was actually called Rumble because it was part of Rumble's Maw, and again that butts up to a famous area which is called Cow and Calf Rocks. And there was a famous alien, that called the Ilkley alien, the little green man of Ilkley. Was filmed just along those moors where Rumble lived, the giant Rumble. Anyway, I just thought I'd add that bit in when you were talking about these people and these giants that lived, around Ireland and England, or I should say,
the Anunnaki, did go to the British Isles and to Ireland, and they created the monoliths. I'm having feedback. Hold on, let me see what's going on. No, okay, someone else talk.
The hinges cover the hinges, not just Stonehenge is a little one. There's hinges, huge works underneath, down the entire British Isles are covered with these connector hinges, these rows and rows, and it's all mathematical and it's all laid out, and they used them.
Not only that, Sasha, not only that, we're looking at underground bases and tunnels.
Yeah,
and that's a fact. I mean,
it's all connected.
It is all connected. It is all connected. And strangely enough, they're talking about making a road and tunnelling underneath Stonehenge, aren't they?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, why the heck would you want to do that? They're saying no. I mean, the thing is, if you look, I mean, I'm thinking to myself, there's more to this than meets the eye.
First of all, look at the area. The area, besides the little part around Stonehenge, is military. It's closed off to the public. You can't go there. You can't. It's the British military knows darn well whatever it is.
Of course it does. This is what I'm saying. There's always, when these people, do things, they don't do them for nothing. It might seem ludicrous, that they're doing things, but believe me, usually there's something behind it, and it's sinister.
Yes.
That is my belief, anyway. When these people do things.
Yes. You know what? The story that keeps going through my mind, I don't want to believe it, but it's so powerful, that Daniel Cooper says is that all the inhabitants of Earth have been sold off to as slaves, and a false alien invasion is supposed to scare us so much that we say, "Oh yeah, take us someplace and save us," and they'll take us off to slave for them.
But then not quite 100% right, honey. That's not right. What they're doing is that they're creating a horrendous environment here with all the pollution. It might be the chemtrails a part of it, but it's cooking it up so someday this planet's not going to be inhabitable, and then the false flag will be the extraterrestrials who come down and say, well, you don't have to perish with this planet. We've got a lovely planet, a series of planets. You can join the Federation. Well, chemtrails are probably part of it. They're changing the atmosphere and the pollution, the fossil fuels, the chemtrails, all this stuff. We're like a bunch of lobsters in the pot that is boiling, slowly boiling, and we're not paying attention, and we're going to wake up and the air will be no longer breathable, and then they're going to come down and rescue us, because we're so used to being saved. Yeah. So they'll come down as the saviors and rescue us, and they'll say, we're going to take you off to another planet. But the point is that what Dan is saying is that we're already slaves. And we are. We're corporate economic slaves. We've been slaves since the Anunnaki. We were created as a slave species, and we're ongoing slaves. Now, you can have your slaves suffer and eat dirt, or you can make it nice for your slaves, and they go to work, and they come home, and they have a nice car and a nice house, and they don't know that they're slaves. But they're slaves because, and this is what we were talking about earlier, about a new system of governance that's coming out. To at least if we're going to be slaves, we'll have more benefits. So, we're going to have benefits wherever we go. Some slave masters are going to be better than others. So that's all we can do. Because apparently
because like you said, the thing is, there'll come a point in time when we'll turn around and say, look, this planet's had it. We can't sustain all the people because of the atmosphere. Now, again, that is going back, if you look at it, to the Anunnaki. So again, on the Beirut, where they said that, okay, They had to mine for this gold to put this monoatomic gold into the atmosphere. And we've got things today where we've got, whatever being sprayed into the atmosphere, because it is, you can tell, but also something strange. And that is, you were talking about, like with Noah, and when the ice caps melted, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things is that the ice caps are melting. You're looking at the images on TV, which has been pumped across to us all the time, and saying that, look, here's these polar bears, and look, we've got this land that was out there frozen where they lived, and now that the land is basically becoming less and less. But where's the floods? There's a school of thought that says that a lot of this, again, if you look on YouTube, you'll see where people have done the research, and they said that it's a global elite that actually have businesses and run corporations. One person in particular who has created this, that is making countries pay for this green taxing on, sort of like the carbon footprint. Well, I've just learned by watching this television about Brexit, and saying that one of the biggest companies is going to have to close down if it doesn't get an handout from the government, and because of Brexit. And when you look at it realistically, it said that they just spent something like, I don't know how many millions in paying a green tax, right? Yeah. Now, England stopped being a superpower in manufacturing quite a number of years ago. So why are we paying this tax, right? Yeah. Why are we paying this government, this sort of like party, hundreds of millions of pounds from our industries, right? Yeah. Where there's China and bigger countries pumping out crap out there, right, yeah, that are not paying anything. Again, my country and its companies manufacturing are being penalised by this false bullshit about paying tariffs on the carbon footprint, when we've got China doing more, and other bigger countries, because we're in Ireland when it comes down to it. We're not, we're an island. You know what I mean? But again, we're paying for everything. We're paying this bullshit EU money, right? Yeah, and we're paying these companies. How can a company flourish when it's paying this big multi-corporation for this green footprint, millions and millions? It's eating into its profits. So how can it sustain? It can, and it's not meant to, because these people are trying to do away with smaller companies, right? Yeah. So what they're doing is they're taking away the competition, right? Yeah. So, it's just unbelievable. And they're telling you that there's a problem, sort of like, and it's showing you all what's going on, and about, sort of like plastic in the ocean. Well, wait a minute, who put it there? Who put it there? Sort of like...
Everybody.
Well, I didn't personally put it there. You know what I mean? I didn't personally put it there. And the thing is, if there's a way of making something, there's a way of taking it back to how it was first designed and made. So we've got to look at that. And the other thing is, of course, we've got to, I was telling somebody, when I was a kid, we had police come round. If you dropped a bottle of a paper and you didn't put it in the litter bin, how many litter bins do you ever see nowadays? How many litter bins do you ever see when you go to the shops? You don't see many.
Oh, yeah, they don't really have them. They used to have them by the doors.
Why not? Because
they don't want to pay for trash. Because trash is very expensive to get rid of, yeah.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, it is and it isn't. Because it's got to go somewhere. And, you know, this is what I'm saying. It's got to go so it's a case of they're making people dirty. They're making people filthy, you know, where they'll just drop waste and litter anywhere. And sort of like, and that's a big, big problem. And of course, it ends up floating out and goes into the seas and what have you. You know, and it's no pride. They're taking away pride. They're taking away that thing. Humans, you know, sort of like looking after the planet, you know, and it's just a dirty country that we're living in at the moment, run by dirty people. But remember, you can have...
Yeah, we're seeing the decline of civilization, yeah.
But anyway, so, so it would suggest to me, by what's happened to me personally, you know, that obviously there is still wars going on. And one of the things what I came across, which was unbelievable, is that they're looking for something, right, yeah? These aliens are all fighting, right, yeah? And they seem to be looking for something. Hello?
Yeah, we're listening. What are they looking for?
Well,
do you have any idea?
Yeah, well, there's technology, because some of the actual aliens had more technology than the others. It wasn't shared out fairly, right? Yeah.
Right.
One of the things that they've been looking for, which I know for certain, again, remember when there's a war. Right, yeah, when there's a war going on, right, yeah, like the First World War, the Second World War, Civil War, you name it, right, yeah, there's always been a reason, yeah, there's always been a reason, right, yeah, and you've got to look at it realistically and say it's the Anunnaki or it's the bloodlines that have been creating this, and would you say that's right?
Yeah, they keep us in a war-based economy.
I think that's the essence of the problem.
It keeps us distracted.
This is the problem.
And we can't figure out what's going on because we're always in base shock or survival mode, trying to figure out how just to live.
I think I think people are beginning to understand that. So what we've got here is we've got the bloodlines that are all there and what have you, and usually they're kept out of the reach of wars. If there's any wars, even though they're officers and what have you, they usually try to keep them out of, you know, danger's way. And if they're fighting another country, you know, basically it will be Anunnaki as well, or bloodline as well. Because if you're fighting a rich country and you're a rich country, you're going to say to them, look, so and so's fighting, so just keep away from this area. You know what I mean? Because is our whatever, part of our royal family. And they might say the same thing. Oh, well, look, I've got a royal family in this, you know, well, you keep away from that, you know, so it's all mapped out. You know, these zones, there's all these zones, no fly zones, no bomb zones. And sometimes people could never work out why, you know, why is this? And, right then, there might be somebody there of great importance, right, yeah? Right? So they'll never get to the full, you know, battles. That's one thing. But they're still gone to war because, like I say, one of the things what I came across was that in the Middle East and with the what do you call it? With again, my memory's going. With the Iraq, you know, war and what have you, we had super technology, what was supposed to have been given right, yeah, to Saddam Hussein. And they called it weapons of mass destruction. Well, what people are looking at now are saying it could have been a time machine. You've probably heard of this before.
Oh, yeah, we've heard that they have time machine.
Stargate.
And Stargate technology, yes.
Well, I can say that, that is definitely true. It's ancient technology that was given. And obviously, our governments did not want them to have it. And so it had to be taken back. Right, yeah? Now, whenever this has happened, same in the Second World War with Hitler and what have you, he was given, you can almost tell that there was information given to him, and von Braun definitely, when they said that this technology, what we got, came from what did he say? Came from the stars, people from other planets?
Extraterrestrials.
Yeah. So what was all that about? And the very fact that NASA never arrested any of these Nazis for war crimes or anything, but yet let them into America with open arms and let them create a military technology and use it in America, because that's what NASA was. It's classed as military. So you've got all these people, right, yeah, firing rockets up into the sky. And I know what I'd have been thinking. I'd have been thinking, hey, wait a minute. I'm from Yorkshire here. We're not that daft. You've got to watch these. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. But anyway, it didn't make any sense until you realise one thing, and that is, bloodline again. We've got people in power, come to power, and they don't just come to power for nothing. It's because somewhere along
they're all it.
Of course.
They're all the same bloodline. Yeah, we're not it. And so you can identify who they are by who's got the money. So who's got the money? Everybody's in charge and around the planet. They're all in the same boat. So these are artificial constructs to divide and conquer. So it doesn't matter who you vote for. They all got money. They're all the rich. They're all, got at least, I don't know, do they have at least 10 million, 50 million? These are the power elite. They're in control of the planet.
This is it. So
they're playing in that big old boys club, yeah.
Yeah. So, once you know this, then you're on a sticky wicket, sort of like, as we say. I could never understand why they say that, but anyway, never mind. It's one of those English sayings, sticky wicket. Anyway, so
it's from cricket. It's from cricket. It's just like it's a hard base to get by, like second base in our baseball game.
Yeah. I thought it might have been somehow, but never mind. Anyway, so right. So anyway, yeah. So let's see what I was going to ask. I've got so many questions to ask you. So
yes, we have 10 minutes.
We've got 10 minutes. Flipping heck, it's gone fast tonight as a show.
I'd really like to comment about, about the last days of Hitler lived in Argentina, but the last German submarines went from Argentina and South Africa, and the Nazis had a base underneath the ice there. The Brits tried to get in. They were repulsed. The U.S. Navy in 1947 sent a fleet, and it was defeated in the Battle of the Weddell Sea. The Germans had hover, the kind of craft that we call flying saucers. They've already had been landed on the moon. They also had assistance from some of the people that were in the tunnel and so forth. Our fleet came back, and the thing was hushed up. And there's a civilization under Antarctica, and the Nazis were all forgiven because of Allen Dulles, who was running the CIA, and he wanted the secrets, and he wanted the people, and he was a Nazi sympathizer from the get-go, and he made them, after they got all their secrets or whatever they knew, they placed them all over, so now they control the United States and the German fleet in the ICC. And the Nazis, the Fourth Reich is here. We're in it.
What's the ICC? Sorry. Say again?
Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate. It's the 200 families that own everything.
Right, I say right.
Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, yes.
Right, so, yeah. So, but, you see, but when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, right, yeah, what we're looking at is bloodlines of aliens.
There you go, yeah.
Well, no matter what,
these are the ones.
Why? Just because they're descendant of a certain line is dumb. Everybody's got a light to shine. Every life is worth living. Every song's to be sung. You know, it's this hierarchy is the basic fault of the way things are. Who's on the top dog and who's competing to be top dog instead of cooperating in partnership and synergy. Do away with this kind of power. It's disgusting.
Oh yeah.
Hell with them on it.
But do you think these people? It's like, do you think that they look at it that way? Do you think any of them? You see, the way I see it is that these things, right? Yeah. As far as I understand it, I don't know whether I'm wrong, but these things don't have souls. These things that have been made, right? Yeah, they can live, they can flourish, but they do not have a soul like you and me and Janet.
There's a real difference there in how much empathy people that we would say have a soul. What that ultimately comes down to is you know that you're not confined to your own skin encapsulated self-sense, but that the you commingles and has a coherent field with everybody and everything. And that's what a lot of these cold aliens lack, that ability to feel oneness with everybody and everything. They think they're better there.
That could be the reason then why, obviously, you know, it's like, if they'd been made with that gene pool, how the hell can we get any further from them? You know, if there's no empathy, you know, from these, and they're made that way with no soul.
There is a way. Russ, there is a way. There really is a way. You can find the common ground. And what you can do with, say, a rich wastrel person who never worked a day in his life and has servants for everything and blah, blah, blah. You just find out, who do you love? What's your relationship like? What's important to you? And and what happens is you get to the common ground. There's something that this person, the alien or the Illuminati person, loves. From there you can work that's the common ground you can work from. It's not impossible. We know how to do it. Carl Rogers trained us how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying, but it's sad, you know, when you're in a room, with a psychopath, hard to do. Okay, this is Russ Kellett saying thank you to Sasha and Janet Lessin. This is Russ's mixed bag, a mixed bag of all things paranormal and
aloha.
Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Good night and God bless.
Thank you. Gotta run. Bye bye.
Good night, God bless. Bye, Sasha.
God bless.
Bye, Janet.
Bye.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at higher risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free. But there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed. People working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country is founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Who? Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said. He also said that every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This